With the V11, Vivo is bringing some high-end features like an underglass fingerprint scanner and near bezel-free screen to the mid-range. Despite generally being a solid phone all round, the V11 feels a bit like it's bitten off a few more flagship features than it can chew. Right now the mid-range seems to be going in one of two directions. It's either cramming flagship specs into a mid-range price point, or it's keeping the specs mid-range but trying to offer a watered-down flagship experience. While the Poco Phone F1 is a good example of the former with beefy specs and no frills, the Vivo V11 is a good example of the latter, putting flagship features in a mid-range phone. And in a lot of ways it succeeds. It has a great display, excellent battery life, solid performance, good looks, high-end tech like an in-display fingerprint scanner and tiny water drop notch around a near bezel-free screen. This is awesome stuff for a phone in this price bracket, but it feels a bit like Vivo should have focused on those basics and called it a day. Before we jump in, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and ring the bell to be notified of future uploads. In the quest to bring that flagship feeling to the V11, Vivo has decided to AI all the things, most notably in the camera. Now I have to admit that a few updates were pushed out while I was doing this review, so things may not stay this way forever, but as it stands right now, the V11 camera experience is a bit of a mess. In ideal conditions, the V11 camera is pretty good. Daylight shots and selfies in good conditions are excellent with great colour and detail. Even low light shots are okay if you're leaning the phone on something because there's no OIS or EIS here. I ended up giving up entirely on the 25 megapixel front-facing camera because while it got some great shots some of the time, it ended up grainy and soft far too often, and I found it easier just to rely on the 12 megapixel primary camera instead. While the V11 doesn't handle dynamic range all that well, it does have a great HDR mode. I ended up leaving it on auto all the time because of how well it balances shadows and highlights without going overboard. At night the V11 loses points though, as it blows out highlights, can't handle moving subjects, and generally looks grainy and undetailed. Again, given ideal circumstances you can get workable shots, but conditions need to be very specific to get them, and the V11 just isn't reliable enough for me. The price doesn't get the V11 a pass either, because significantly cheaper phone cameras like the Xiaomi Mi A2 perform better. Once you get past the basics, the V11 camera experience only kinda gets worse. The AI scene detection is a bit slow and doesn't really change that much in the shot. The AI portrait framing sort of works, but all it really does is get you to center your subject. The AI face beauty options can be handy if you're into that kind of thing, but they tend to be a bit aggressive. The panorama stitching is poor, the portrait mode edge detection isn't all that great, and so on. With this many failed attempts at improving the extras on the camera, I can't help but feel that Vivo should have prioritized basic camera performance and left the rest to the flagships. If your photography needs are pretty straightforward, then the V11 will do you just fine, but if you're expecting a lot from all of the added extras, then think again. And this is basically the V11's problem. It's a very good mid-range phone, but it tries too hard to take on extras that it can't really back up. Because Vivo has put so much into making the V11 look like an affordable flagship, it's hard not to point out several things that are missing while still being present on other phones in this price range. There's no IP rating, no NFC, no wireless charging, no 4K video or image stabilization, no USB Type-C, and an obvious missed opportunity to have stereo speakers, so the bottom firing speaker is the only one used for music and media. On the plus side, that single speaker is actually pretty decent, with crisp highs, loud volume, and decent sound even at full blast without sounding tinny. The presence of the 3.5mm headphone jack is a welcome bonus too, meaning you don't need a dongle or to switch to Bluetooth headphones. Bluetooth 5 is also included so you can enjoy higher bandwidth as well. The choice of micro USB is kind of hard to stomach on a phone as futuristic looking as the V11, but it does have fast charging. Its 3400 mAh battery is really efficient, and I regularly got through half of my second day before I needed to think about recharging. You might want to disable the off-screen fingerprint scanner to save on battery though. Vivo's FunTouch OS on Android 8.1 won't appeal to everyone, but on my global unit, changing the custom launcher is a simple enough task. FunTouch does have a bunch of good options though, like an app and file vault, app cloning for multiple instances of a messaging or social media app, display calibration, motorbike mode, always on display, gesture navigation, and Google Assistant and Google Lens baked right in. Vivo's Jovi Virtual Assistant is still on board, but it's basically relegated to handling in-game interruptions in game mode and some of the AI camera tweaks I already mentioned. The V11 feels very pocketable because of its relatively small size and light weight, and it won't break the bank either. For the equivalent of $360 to $440 US, depending on your market, it will definitely make an impression when you pull it out of your pocket. But the Vivo V11 has some very stiff competition from the likes of Xiaomi and the Poco phone, as well as Honor and even Oppo. To be honest, I think Vivo has missed a trick here by trying to do a little bit too much, because it's the extras that let this phone down, even as the essentials are almost universally well done. It looks great and generally performs great, and that would have been enough for me. So it all boils down to what you expect from a mid-range phone these days. If all you want is the best possible specs you can get, you better look elsewhere. If you want an affordable phone that brings flagship features to a mid-range price point, well, I think there's other phones that have succeeded better on that front too. But if you want a mix of good specs and performance with a real flagship look, well, the V11 might just be for you. Only you know which compromises you're willing to put up with, but the best part is, if the V11 isn't quite your cup of tea, there are plenty of other great options out there that might be. As always, thanks for watching. Keep it locked to AndroidAuthority.com because we are your source for all things Android.